Good afternoon, Joey on the Caribbean Weather Dude here once again with another show about bad weather. Well, we got like a bomb going off right now, kind of entering into Manitoba at the moment. Some very, very extreme winds. This is a storm system that passed through BC this week that we had, and it wasn't a very exciting one when it did. In fact, it pretty much squeezed out to nothingness, but then crossed over into the Alberta side and deepened quickly. I'm not sure if it meets the category for a bomb cyclone or not, but it was like 1016 millibars in Alberta or in Saskatchewan, Alberta border country yesterday. It dropped down to about 990. I'd say it's in the conversation nonetheless, and it's hitting like a bomb right now. There's a new hurricane coming towards Florida. It should be there for Wednesday. That's very scary. At the same time, here in BC, we're still in this pattern of, repeat storms hitting the coast, but not a lot of rain necessarily for the southern interior still yet. It's still pretty dry in a lot of places. So that's some of the things we'll be talking today about on the Bad News Show here with Joe. Let's go. There it is. This is bad news. My God.
Falling out right now.
Anything could happen. Get on! Wow. I'll watch the video later. They dry mop in this.
You know, and you've developed a lot of really good relationships with First Nations, with the provincial folks, with volunteer organizations. Tell me what you would give for advice on the relationship side of things.
I think people appreciate the facts.
You're listening to a clip from Wildfires, Floods, and Chaos Communications Podcast, the sponsor of this show. You can find that at communicationspodcast.ca. Great show. Please tune in, communicationspodcast.ca. Okay, let's get on with the show. Let's go. Here's what the official people are saying right now. We got this wind warning on the Saskatchewan side. Sustained winds of 60 to 70, with wind gusts 90 to 100 kilometers an hour, possible midday today persisting. This is what's going on in Saskatchewan right now. People are experiencing this, and early through the early evening, they will ease throughout the overnight. So, but these are very concerning strong winds. It's going to take a little longer for it to go away. That will ease over through the night at some point as well for the Manitoba side. So, very, very interesting wind warning going on there. Powerful storm. That's what we're going to talk about, I think, first. Special weather statement. This is from the same system that's going to be moving now into Ontario over the next 24 hours, where you could be seeing wind gusts of 70 to 80. You would not want to be on Lake Superior. I was saying the other day, if you have an Edmund Fitzgerald, do not be sailing, I don't think, when this one's coming through. Go check out all the other side of Ottawa Valley there. Frost advisory for Nealon, Quebec, and up into the St. Lawrence area and Gaspé Peninsula. 60 to 80 millimeters of rain coming there. 100 millimeters are possible even. 40 to 70 in Gaspé Peninsula is expected. Heavy downpours may cause flash flooding and ponding on roads and things like that. A low pressure system will move slowly across the Maritimes and eastern Quebec and may linger for a few days. Alberta more or less had their turn with this storm, and some of the highest gusts were at Latham and Patricia, up over 100 kilometers an hour. Fort Macleod, 100 kilometers an hour. Down at Stavely, that's not too far from Nanton. Pinhorn, both at 100. And then approaching 100, we're still Carway, Milk River, Barons, Claresholm. So a lot of those places there in that southwestern corner of Alberta especially, and that's areas where you generally expect to see some pretty strong winds down towards the Waterton area. You know, they talk about the Pincher Creek wind madness. People who've been in Pincher Creek so long, these old farmers, that the wind just gets to them. Meanwhile, we're still setting record temperatures up in Nunavut. I mean, these don't seem like record temperatures, but a new record of 7. That's a big drop, rise from 4, which was set in 2021. They've been keeping records there since 1937. The Arctic is warming up, folks, and it's warming up fast. And all the fire activity that's been going on up there this year should terrify you, because every little bit of ground that gets exposed by the fire burning over will pretty much guarantee the melting of the permafrost there, which will guarantee more carbon release, which will guarantee more methane release. What's going on in the Arctic is terrifying right now, and the fact that we're still seeing this warming trend continuing into what should be winter up there now, we should have crossed into that. You know, it's not unheard of to have temperatures over 0, but no, we're heading into winter there. It's the Arctic. Kiktangurak, like, this is the Arctic. Patangertung, the Arctic, man. It's up there. It's in the Barrens. And they're seeing 8.5 now as we're entering October. They're losing daylight fast up there, and it's still warm. And I'm watching this stuff go on. It's like, breaking my brain. I'm looking at the devastation from the last hurricane down there in the Carolinas, for example, in shock and in horror for the people and the animals and the creatures and the plants and everything that's trying to stand up to this. I looked at that where the hurricane just glanced by in Florida, and there was places there that had it looked like a snowstorm had hit. There was so much sand driven up inland into neighborhoods that they were digging cars out of what seemed like a snowstorm had hit. It was sand. It was just crazy. They'd never seen anything like that. Like the strongest storm to hit Tampa in 100 years, and it didn't hit Tampa. Okay, so, we're into a weird new trend, and I guess I'm at this point now where I've been doing this for so long that if you keep laughing at what I say, I'm just going to lose my nerve. Someday, one morning, I'm going to wake up when my confidence is low or my anger is high or my frustration with civilization just kicking rocks and doing nothing in the face of impending doom and disasters, and having to constantly deal with explaining to people no, this is not because of some made up phony HARP conspiracy that you believe in. It's not because of chemtrails. You don't want to believe that human emissions are driving global climate change. You don't want to admit that. So you think of anything else and you'll laugh and you'll point and laugh. And what drives me even crazier, it's when some of you who have been following my forecast for years, you've been watching me on Interior Weather and Wilderness Watchers, you know how often I've been right and right and right and right. But yeah, every once in a while I say something about, the fact that we're really at the tipping change point, like something bad is happening here, and you laugh. You laugh. Ha, 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 ha. Well, I like what he says about the weather, but he's out to lunch about the climate. Well, how do you think I understand the small if I don't understand the big picture too? So back to the smaller picture. Here's on satellite our image right now. This is our storm. This is our cyclone. I mean, you could look at it this way, or you could even take a look at the temperatures. You can see how the warm is feeding up into it. The cold is drawing down into it. That is feeding this mid-latitude cyclone. So here's our mid-latitude cyclone. We could put this in motion and just see what it's done for the last 12 hours because it is kind of neat. So it came across BC. And then as it got into Saskatchewan, it really started to get its act together and is now really behaving like a mid-latitude cyclone. So again, I'm not sure if this necessitates the definition of a bomb cyclone, sorry about the plosive, bomb cyclone, which generally is considered to have dropped 24 millibars within 24 hours. I would think that the pressure drop that went through Saskatchewan was higher, but is that the storm itself dropping, or is it just the local conditions that see the change? Someone could argue with me that that's not technically a bomb cyclone, or you maybe could find reasons why I am correct. But anyways, I don't really care right now. Estevan has reported 102 wind gusts lately, averaging 72, 79, averaging 74, 104 just on the other side of the U.S. border there, down at CWJI at that airport, 80 kilometers an hour, just a small airport there. At Regina, still seeing 85 in the last report in there. 94 reported at Brandon Airport 23 minutes ago. I know Justin Ortle and some of the people from Weather Center Manitoba, some of his people are out on some high place right now. I don't know what it is they're on. It's like a hill that's sort of near Brandon called Barron Hill or something like that, maybe over the river valley. I'm not exactly sure the location. I've been to Brandon a bunch of times. They're standing there and taking a lot of wind in the face, getting gravel in the mouth and things like that. So here's the overall picture right now. We got this is Hurricane Kirk, very, very powerful Atlantic hurricane, but kind of out in the middle of nowhere, not going to affect anybody too much. Maybe the Azores will see some precipitation and some weather from it associated with it, but no one's taking that hurricane dead on. No. We got this guy out here, this mid-latitude cyclone. It's got sort of an atmospheric river in it. It may be able to draw from that hurricane. I don't know. I think that often when you see that kind of shape that comes right about right into here, whatever, it's become too wrapped. I think sometimes what happens is it cuts off its flow that's feeding it from the warm and the cold that are feeding it. It becomes sort of self-wrapped, and it disrupts its inflows to keep that storm very powerful. So we have that. But then down here, new tropical depression that's forming there, and it's going to most likely go to Florida by Wednesday. So we're watching this area right here in the Gulf of Mexico. BC taking the next round of precipitation coming in. It's kind of nasty in northern BC. It's gross here in Wells. It's raining. So the Northern Lights show that everyone is supposed to be getting and will not be seeing any of it here, at least for absolute sure. Look at the amount of rain that's just hammering into the UK Isles there. It's pretty wild. For the most part, the continent's seeing a lot of nice weather. I mean, the United States is mostly seeing really great weather right now. Canada seeing a lot of cloud, it looks like. We got this larger guy here who's pretty strong as well. We can turn on the isobars here and get a better picture. So there's a very deep low developing out in the Alaska the Aleutian Islands, and we still have all the storm soup that we need for a series of weather to come in this week from the Pacific. Here's a hurricane we'll be tracking this week into Wednesday. Here's our mid-latitude cyclone slamming now. It's entered Manitoba, I think, by this point properly. The central low pressure, this cold front off the coast of the East Coast, and then we got this sort of warm front coming into BC. It's kind of nice right now in BC, temperature-wise in the south, I think, but maybe not so much here in Wells or elevation. No, elevation seeing cold weather, but I think down the very valley bottoms in the southern BC, it's not so bad. It was at 2:30 in the afternoon. We got temperatures like 28 reported. That seems kind of crazy. A ship reporting 28. I don't believe that. But we got 19s and 20s and 18s, Kamloops at 20. So some nice weather in southern BC and still remaining pretty dry there. Well, the rest of us more or less get slopped in with this sort of crap that's coming at the moment. But yeah, look in the Caribous and up to Prince George region, we're seeing kind of like 9, 10, 11, 12s. And then you go up to Fort Nelson's. There's snow on the ground up there through the Pink Mountain area. I think I just saw an image of someone driving to work up there, up along the coast. Strong winds hammering up there, but not really much of a story. And it's the same sort of area precipitation on the mid-coast that we've been getting a lot of our weather stories lately. Storm after storm after storm seems to really be targeting its hose right there. So we got this next big guy coming in this week. By tomorrow afternoon, our big low that will lose a little bit of its steam, but it will move through and probably send some thunderstorm activity through southern Ontario for Sunday. So watch for that. There'll be lots of rain in northern Ontario as well. Looks like northern BC still seeing some rain. That low that's sort of sitting up there in the Alaska area, it's sending a lot of wind and precipitation, sort of more or less like unsettled weather our way at the moment. It's sort of feeding this in. So we got this sort of like stop rainfall coming to the coast at times, and northern BC getting quite a bit of that as well. And then it slides down. So we've seen this pattern now. If you've been watching the channel here, we've seen the same pattern, how this stuff's been moving for a number of days. Then that storm is going to come ashore. This guy, the models had me believing it was going to actually hit into Alaska more, but it looks like it's going to cross this week and come down. So, I'll correct myself there if this is what the case. And this will send, again, this is not a deep, deep low like some of the lows we've been seeing. This is what I would call your run-of-the-mill average, more or less, October crappy coastal weather in the Pacific, right? So sometimes it, it rains a lot on the coast. Yeah, and sometimes it does. And that's what's going on right now. More or less. Like, these aren't crazy storms. Looking towards next weekend, maybe we're going to see something that's a little bit more intense. Repeat this week of forecasting. And, we will make a work week forecast so we get into it. But this is kind of your larger overview of things, I think, today. So here's our next sort of storm that wants to form up there on the Aleutian Islands. And this guy, some of the images of it, and hey, look what just goes through eastern Canada too from Wednesday on. And this is more or less our storm that sort of squeezed out, was reborn, comes to somewhere around Quebec, squeezes out, and then gets reborn again, and then redevelops and resinks in. So again, this is going to drop pretty low, pretty fast, that storm. There it goes, dropping down to 986. So that's going to be a bit of a bomb as well as it moves out there for the down to 978. So, East Coast looking towards later in the week, they're going to see some pretty strong weather, pretty big winds, a bunch of rain, things like this. So here's our guy, BC seeing a nice clear day on Friday, maybe not so bad on Thursday. So we catch kind of our break almost the same days this next week as we kind of did this week a little bit too. That dropping right down. If it gets down to 958, 960, that's strong. That's really strong, right? And just by comparison, when our hurricane comes ashore, it's expected to be about a 976 this week. So that's no matter what, there's going to be a lot of rain coming to Florida and places that really don't need much more of that. And hopefully that passes through Florida more and stays out of the Carolinas. So we're concerned about that. The next big story coming to BC will more or less be next weekend. And if this is this kind of low, we could be seeing the next round of an atmospheric river, stronger rainfalls. It could be back into another one of those stories where we're looking at localized flooding or damaging winds in places and things like that. So this is a week out. We're not gonna really guess at that today, but that's sort of looking a week out. Is it possible that we have a very strong storm by this next weekend? And until then, we might see a lot of bland weather. But here's another point I want to make. Now, there's not a lot of precipitation still yet coming to the central and southern interiors. Especially if you start getting south of Williams Lake this week, And you look at Category 5 droughts in the West Kootenay. You look at the Kettle River area. We're seeing some Category 4. We're seeing lots of this brown is Category 3s. So in this area alone, I mean, so then you also, these other areas are only Category 1 and 2, but that's across the entire south of the province still. And even Vancouver Island still is at 1 and 2 category levels, so it still requires more rain. It's taken some good rainfall, but it's a rainforest. It needs a lot more rain than it's got so far. So we are concerned about how little of this we've been seeing so far, and yet this next week doesn't seem to be a real change in that. You know, as far as I'm concerned, the north, it's continuing to get a lot of rain and a lot of precipitation coming at it. The Peace, though, maybe a little less. This area, the Bulkley Lakes, Parsnip, and Upper Fraser, these are going to see more rain totals again. So things are looking a little better for you. It's continuing to move in the right direction, at least, even though it's not showing that to us yet, or we're not seeing that result quite yet. It seems to me we're heading in the right place to start seeing these drought totals start to change. And you can see the area regions all around have now seen change. The Caribou is, we've seen these regions all around going through change now. They're in a better position, where we're in Category 0, right? So the drought is over for a lot of BC, so we're just waiting for you to catch up right there. In all, drought intensity, BC looking better and better and better, and still problems up there in the Northwest Territories. They still need more moisture. Ontario is going to be getting some help this weekend from this system moving through, so hopefully this starts putting a little bit of a change, and that next system in the Maritimes should put a change on there. So hoping to see a little bit of a change in the drought. We'll just fast forward and see if that registers. Yeah, a little bit for sure. And moving across, we'll see if this registers out there. Now, BC looking better and better, but it's just that southern part of the province that's really still struggling to find enough moisture. We're going to see some of those drought levels change, I'm pretty sure, like we were looking at. I think some of those areas that are at high category droughts, we're going to start seeing that change over the coming weeks, if not sooner. So that's more or less what I got for you today. Look out for that big new hurricane. New projections are something that we're going to see a Category 3 hurricane hit Tampa directly dead on Wednesday, 185 kilometer an hour winds. So very scary, very concerning for you. You know, I don't know what to say. I really hope the best for all of you. I mean, it's terrifying what's going on. It's really awful. Entire towns getting wiped right off the map. It's becoming, it wasn't that long ago where towns getting wiped off the map was sort of like an unbelievable, shocking thing. It sort of seemed like in my lifetime, now it just seems to be this regular, like how many times a year does a town get wiped off the map? Whether it's Jasper or Lytton, or whether it's towns in California, or whether it's the Carolinas, all the different people, all the different animals and human beings and creatures and plants, they're all trying to live on this planet, and they're getting absolutely slammed by increasingly hostile weather cycle. And I don't know what humans are going to plan to do about it. Nothing, it seems like. So when I was asked if we reached the tipping point, I said, well, seeing as humans aren't prepared to do anything, yes, humans themselves are the tipping point. In fact, we've been working at it for a long time, deforesting, burning, putting carbon in the atmosphere, maybe the last ice age partly ended because of us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we're still technically in an ice age. I know. Anyways, let's not make this a climate change episode. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated through the roof seeing how grim some of these forecast details are. These things that would not have been considered normal or realistic or probable when I first got into weather 25, 30, 35 years ago and beyond. I can remember being 9 years old and was so fascinated by Hurricanes Hugo and Gilbert when they hit down there in Florida in the late 80s. I had to know everything about what happened to those storms in 1988, 1989. The subtropical, the depressions, they came up into Ontario, and I was like, wow, a hurricane's coming. Well, it's not actually a hurricane, son. It's like, I don't care. It was a hurricane, and it's coming here, and I just thought that was so cool. It made me want to know about weather. That was a time of my life when I was deciding, like, how deep down the rabbit hole would I go into finding out about weather? And every book in the library that had a story on hurricane, I was reading it. And the things that and then we had little films that I'd get in the library in the projector, and I'd watch the little films about the 1974 super outbreak of tornadoes, and like all that footage. I had to learn more. But yet, for how crazy all that stuff was that I was eating up back then, what's going on now? There's nothing quite like it yet so far. And anyways, hit like, share, subscribe. There's going to be a lot of weather to talk about in the years to come. That's why you're here. Bye now.